So my students of the NGJ School for Gifted Rugsters, something has been bugging me during this World Cup and bugging many other people. It's the amount of talk about refereeing decisions rather than actual gameplay at this World Cup. It's quite frankly a toxic cesspool that I want no part in. People making compilations of refereeing mistakes, barf, people constantly pointing out minuscule moments in games, slowing them down or freezing them, and giving their 2 cents about why this is the greatest injustice in the history of our game, or how this particular incident is ruining the sport, and how could the referee miss it. And my initial reaction to people behaving and ranting about this is just have some effing empathy. Like, come on. But I think I need to factor in both sides of the argument before I cast such definitive and harsh judgment, and view the whole process rather than just the end result. So it's time, my students, to discuss the role of referees in rugby. Now, referees have always been an essential part of any sport because, as we all know, organised fun is the best kind of fun, which is one of the weirdest completely true things about sport. People need rules in sport, both because without them it just becomes chaos, which I imagine would be fun for about 10 minutes, but also because limitations are always the mother of innovation. It's what humans can do within our limitations that will always fascinate and be the core of why people get into sport. First thing I need to figure out when I'm watching the new sport is, what are the rules? For example, my recent exploits into Aussie rules. I watched a game and I guess you call a mark in the opposition's circular 22, and you can rugby tackle people in open play, except when they call a different kind of mark when they catch the ball, where people just back off you and give you a free kick. I've only watched one game. But the point is that the game's limitations mean that people go nuts for a mark, and the contest for the ball in the air is ferocious, violent, and awesome. The rules and regulations birthed something beautiful, and most of the time they do, and to enforce these glorious rules, you need referees. But I feel the fact that you need referees in sport is something that either annoys people or is something they just choose not to acknowledge. And this is a lot worse in other sports, with referees in sports like football not only having fans call for their blood when anything goes against them, but also having players say some wild stuff right in their mush. And it's interesting thinking about just where does this anger come from in society? Is it the fact that rules in society are frustrating and a lot of people feel trapped by them in general life, and the referees in sport just seem to be a walking embodiment of society's oppression upon you, as another person just telling you, you can't do that, I'm afraid. I can do what I want, stop ruining my fun, Uncle Jerry. I'm of course talking about other people's perspective. Ha ha ha, not my own. That would be ridiculous. No, you're sad. Anyway, that sort of attitude to officiating needs to GTFO, hashtag bye bitch. I feel like in the heat of the moment we will always forget that these are people, and I've seen the football style crowding and backchatting slowly creeping into rugby, and I've been guilty of it myself, and it must stop. Rugby, up until this point, at least on the field, has a pretty decent player to referee relationship, but it's easy to say this when I'm not emotionally invested. So let's acknowledge now the elephant in the room and now talk about the issues rugby has been having with its officiating and why it's frustrating so many people, to the point, in my opinion, of genuine prickish behaviour, starting with the rules. So we have discussed before rules are an essential part of sport, but one of rugby's issues is the sheer amount of them. I feel like a broken record speaking about this on my channel, but rugby union is a very overcomplicated sport due to its many rules. Now I know I've already stated that rules are necessary for sport to be fun, as organisation is key, but too many rules can be an issue as well. Sort of like that bloke who keeps adding new drinking rules to nights out. Leave me alone, dude. I'm already plastered, and I can't be bothered to keep remembering to point my elbows instead of my fingers. If we want to compare rulebooks to other sports, football, cricket, tennis, and all those kind of sports would look similar to Roald Dahl's Charlie the Chocolate Factory. Small, compact, easy to remember, and most importantly, fun-sized. Then rugby is just like the yellow fucking pages. You have rules at the ruck, rules at the maul, rules in the lineouts, rules in the tackle, rules when you're in possession of the balls, and so on and so forth. It's so long, giving the referees an ungodly amount to think about, so naturally things are going to be missed. And with the human element of refereeing, other problems come up, like the issue of consistency, which seems to be a massive point of contention between people, and it's easy to see why. Different people have different opinions on different things because we are all, well, different. This is extremely apparent in refereeing. All people see situations differently depending on our experiences as people and what we value. So some refs focus on the breakdown, some on the tackle, and some are very strict on players holding on. Some don't even give those penalties and just want the game to flow. And it can be extremely frustrating for players, coaches and fans alike, as they always say, all I want is some consistency. But I don't believe consistency is a really realistic goal because of my belief in what the ultimate role of refereeing is, which in my opinion is to allow the game to be as enjoyable as possible for spectators, within the confines of the laws of the game. And to different people that means different things, and with things like yellow and red cards, people always have their opinions. And rugby is always going through states of evolution of rules and values, and I understand that can be frustrating, but I believe by the time the next Rugby World Cup comes around, these sort of things will be ironed out. And I look forward to the day that it is. We will always have referees valuing different things, but I feel like we can get to a place where the baseline of what is valued is somewhat consistent, and referees can be valued rather than judged for what they do on the field. I hope you've enjoyed my class. Signed NGJ.